Ryan Barth at the Baker Outdoor Learning Center, bringing you a Try It activity. Before I bring you the activity though, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been daydreaming, or maybe you read a book and you thought about being lost in the wilderness? Could you survive? Could you build a shelter? Could you gather food? Could you make it? I know I have, especially when I was younger. I read books like Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain. I've always daydreamed and thought, could I make it? Could I survive out in the woods? Well, today, I'm bringing you a bushcraft activity where you're gonna make your very own spear. And this spear could be used for harvesting some food, probably fish. We call it a fish spear, for harvesting food if you were lost and had to survive in the woods. So today, our final product will be your very own 4-prong fish spear. So the materials you're gonna need to make your spear, first you're gonna need a saw or a clippers. This is what you'll use to cut down your tree or your branch to get your stick. You're gonna need a knife, a nice sharp sturdy knife for carving. And then you're also gonna need some twine or rope, and I'll explain how the twine or rope works later. Now, a couple words of caution: when using a saw or clippers or a knife, we gotta make sure we have permission to do that and we use them safely. Now what we need to do, we need to go on a little hike. Go find a place where you have permission to go find a tree or a branch, and then we want to cut down a tree or branch probably 4 to 6 feet long, about the size of a pool cue that we'll use for our spear. I'm back, and now I have my stick and I want to turn it into a spear. First thing I want to do is I'm going to take the end that I want to make the spear end, and I'm going to divide it into fourths, because my spear is going to be a 4-pronged spear. So what you need is a real strong, sturdy knife, and you're going to put that where it's exactly halfway in the middle here, and you're going to want to cut. Now, it's very difficult to do this, so what you're going to want to do is have another stick handy, and what you're going to do is you're going to pound down on this, and that's going to make the cut. So let me show you here. I'm going to start to pound down. Take your time, pound on equal sides. So I'm pushing down with my hand while I'm pounding with the stick, and it's beginning to cut the stick in half. Perfect, I'm almost to where I want to be. So we'll give you a close-up look at that. So I've just divided the stick in half so far. Now I'm going to carefully remove my knife, and I'm going to twist it. I'm going to do the exact same thing to cut it in half again, but now I'll get my end of my spear into 4 parts. So I'm going to take it again, and I'm going to use my stick to pound down. Now I've divided it into 4 equal parts. We want to expand this spear so it has 4 individual prongs. So our goal here is going to be to make it wider and expand it like we've done on this finished product. So what you need to do, go collect 2 small sticks, probably about 3 to 4 inches long, pretty small, and they're going to work as our dividers. So I got this first stick. I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to start to divide my spear prongs. Then I get my second one, and I'm going to get it in here, and I'm just going to kind of work it back and forth, pushing it in there, and it broke. No big deal. I can either get a different stick, or maybe I can even reuse this one. I think I can reuse this one just a little shorter. Let me try this again. Work it back and forth, work it back and forth, and you can see it's starting to divide my prongs. So now the prongs are separated and I can start to carve them. Before we do that, we need to talk a little bit about knife safety. One thing about knives is whenever you're working with a knife, you always want to work away from yourself. The sharp edge should always be moving away from yourself, and you should make sure there's nothing around you or no one around you when you're carving. So for me, I'm gonna have my spear this way, and I'm gonna carve away from myself like this. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some time. This is gonna take probably a half hour or an hour. It's gonna take some time, and I'm gonna start to carve these prongs. Again, I'm always moving the knife away from myself, and I wanna sharpen these to be 4 really sharp tips to my spear. Spent the last half hour or so carving. We got our 4 prongs pretty good, pretty sharp. I feel pretty good about them. Now our last step is to take some twine, and what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna tie the twine around the stick where it cut. So what we did is we put twine around the end here, tied it off, and that's gonna solidify the end of the spear so it doesn't crack anymore. So your job now is to get permission from your parents or guardians and go outside and make yourself a fish spear. This is the one I just created here today. This is another example. This is the one my son created. Thanks for watching, folks. That's today's Try It activity. fish spear. Now, before you use a fish spear, please check with the DNR or local authorities so you know what the rules are. At our house, we just like to use it for targets and just for fun. But if you do use a fish spear, make sure you know what the rules are. My name is Ryan Barth from the Baker Outdoor Learning Center. I hope to see you outside.